hopefully you all will have fun in Texas and DC. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm not sure of your organization, Lauren. So, you
that's
know,
why you're here tonight to learn about it, right?
I've never heard of it.
You've never heard of a support? Well, fantastic. Well,
No, I've never have, and
well, I will, yeah, I'll definitely talk a little bit about Rehumanize and who we are and what we do, and then go into the little presentation that I have here.
is it a pro-life organization?
Yeah, we're a pro-life organization. We're a consistent life ethics organization. So we do anti-abortion work, but then also anti-death penalty, anti-euthanasia, anti-war,
Oh, and they really pushing that
brutality.
euthanasia. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Oh, I
I
know.
mean, like, I was just at my doctor's today, and they're like, "Do you have a?" I don't know. Nobody wants a responsibility.
I
It's like,
know. It's wild. And Canada is, they're actually having some pushback.
oh, I
This,
know. Well, my rabbi's from Canada originally, and
yeah.
it's crazy over there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm not surprised, but I was there visiting a few
Okay,
times.
we'll go ahead and get started. And Lauren, I am remiss. I so usually we have time for questions and people to introduce themselves to at the for the last 20 minutes or so,
Okay.
or 30 minutes. So if that works with you,
Good.
I should have said that like
Yeah.
3 weeks ago.
No, no, that is good. That's good. I got time to sit around and chat for a little bit too. So
Okay,
no,
so you do your
no rush.
presentation, 20, 30
Yeah.
minutes, and then we'll interrogate you, and then that'll be that.
Fantastic.
Okay, well, without
Ready.
further ado, I want to introduce our guest speaker tonight, Lauren Pope with Rehumanize International. You are the executive director, right? Am I
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Yes, yes. And we have collaborated with you in the past, and you were also involved with our little soiree we had at
Yes.
the March for Life this year, our first one. So we appreciate that.
A good
And
time.
yes, it was. Thank you. And uh, your organization and ours have a little bit in common that we've been around a while.
We
Uh,
have. We
I
have.
have some new friends that I love and new organizations that have kind of, I say, crept up, but are with us now. But when you think about historically alt pro-life organizations, I know we've been around since 1990-ish.
Wow. Yeah. Y'all were
So
OG alt pro lifers there.
yes, kind
We're
of
on our 15th year officially as an organization. So yeah.
okay. That was my next question. So yeah, so we're kind of the grandma of the organization, but we're not that old yet. Okay. Without further ado, Laura Pope, go ahead.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. Love Rainbow Pro Life and everything that y'all do. And yeah, the place that you have in the movement, I think is really important. So, um, like I was saying, we collaborate a lot. We have a lot of cross pollination of followers and members and that sort of thing with the Rainbow Pro Life. We are a secular, consistent life ethic organization, which means we work on all of the issues anytime that there is someone who is at risk of being killed, and especially state sanctioned or overtly done by the state. We are also a LGBTQ affirming organization, very welcoming of people within the community. And I think that that is probably how our two organizations really started to get into work together, is that we are pretty open about that with, like, our merchandising and stuff like that. So we're a secular organization. Our founder started the organization when she was a college student. So it started as a college project that has blossomed and bloomed into what it is today, which is really interesting. So, and I was on the board previously, and I've been executive director for about a year now. So that's a little bit of background about Rehumanize International. And this presentation that I am giving is Rehumanize Yourself. And I think that as activists, as people who are working in the justice movements, and also especially as they relate to life issues, it can be hard work and sometimes, dark and challenging work. And we face a lot of opposition, both politically and even within our own social groups. And then particularly also for Rainbow Pro Life, you also have that added layer of the marginalization that comes with being part of the Rainbow Pro-Life community. So I just thought this one would be a particularly good thing to do here because it's good for all of us, regardless. But I think especially when we face an extra level of sometimes dehumanization ourselves. So without further ado, if I can move my thing forward. Okay, there we go. It's just taken a minute. I might have. So in my opinion, and from what I've seen for over 20 years as an activist, is that there are two ways that activism can break you. First of all, burnout, which can dehumanize yourself. You just cannot do this anymore because you are facing so much and you just are not going to be able to work as an activist any longer. And then also you can have a contempt dehumanizing the people who are constantly going up against in these, sometimes heated debates, and things can get, personal sometimes. And it can be easy to start viewing the people we're talking with as others rather than as human beings. So we're going to talk about both of those today. All right. So kind of the same things we were just saying there. When you are pouring out more than you can take in, it just empties you, and then you just stop being an effective activist. And then it's kind of that slow thing where you stop being effective activist, and then you can just you just stop. Like even outside of your activist work, you are just like, I am burned out. I can't function as I usually do just in my human life. So that's obviously something that we want to avoid for anyone, but particularly people who are really trying to do this important work. And then the second medal of failure here is that as you start coming up against these opponents, and I will say particularly nowadays, like the internet, I feel has gotten worse. People's arguments have gotten just more overtly terrible sometimes, where you're like, you can't really believe that. And you start seeing those things, and it starts to affect how you are seeing them as humans. And you start seeing that dehumanization happening towards the people who you're just regularly interacting with. And they stop being a philosophical opponent and start really being like your enemy that you are, having this real battle with. So we're going to talk about both of those things. I say as I confidently hit my space bar and nothing happens. Come on.
Contempt for the space bar.
Contempt for the space bar. Absolutely. It is there. Okay. So first we're going to talk about humanizing the other. So the number one thing is to try to assume good faith. There are internet trolls who have bad faith, and we are going to encounter them in the work that we do. But if you are talking to someone and after interacting with them for, one or two back and forth, you realize, okay, this is someone who actually has a point of view that they are trying to express. They're not just trying to be ridiculous and, troll, and you're just going to ignore them. Assume that they have good faith, that they're coming to these positions that they hold from a position of good faith, from a position of values that are probably similar to the ones that you share, but have had some divergences, at key points that we can actually discuss as a way of rectifying and coming to some agreements, or just more understanding and not necessarily hostility. So a way of understanding that is that people tend to have stories, right? They tend to have a story that is how they both are seeing the world, and maybe something that has particularly impacted them, that has made them see the world in the way that they do. So a little preview for our upcoming conference in October, 16th through 18th in Chicago, Illinois. We are actually going to be working with a lady who I met through World Beyond War, who does something called peace trolling. She's a little old lady. It's adorable. Basically, she sees these people who are, acting pretty aggressively online, and she does a little forensic investigation. She goes to their Facebook page and tries to kind of get a sense of who they are as people. And then she asks them hey, what happened in your life that made you come to this conclusion? And she has just, the infinite good grace towards them. And usually, they might not always, but a lot of times it turns the temperature down significantly, because once she starts asking them, hey, what is your story? Why is this issue so important to you? Why are you coming at it from this way? They really do tend to go from maybe being very aggressive and hostile to a place of, okay, here's my story. And then you can have a real human conversation. So they're not villains. They're people with stories. And we can get at that by, trying to be curious about it. The second one, this is, something that someone said at one of our conferences several years ago, and I use it and I steal it all the time. which is that no one has a consistent death ethic. So that means everybody has some place where they're like, we can find some common ground with them. They have some place where they want to defend the rights of somebody, and it's like across the board, you are going to, no matter who you're talking to, find a place where they think, hey, this person's rights are being violated, and I would like to, make sure that they're not. And so when you can find that common ground and find the place of agreement, it makes it easier to have good conversations when you diverge. And then the last bit is, we want to humanize first, argue second. Sometimes, especially in online debates, things can get very, very heated, and you're just going back and forth, and you're both like throwing, studies or throwing insults or whatever you're throwing at each other. But it's not really about having any kind of, humanizing relationship-based conversation. It's just like, I want to prove my point. I want to win this argument. So even when it's just someone who you only having passing contact with, in a virtual debate, in a, webinar or something, it's still a good thing to be like, let me try as best I can in this limited space to first try to humanize them. And then especially if you are in relationship with someone and you're already in relationship with them, and you disagree with this person, and that can be really hard, right? It's those Thanksgiving dinners where you're like, I got to talk to, great Uncle Mac, and I know he's going to be spouting some stuff that's going to have me gritting my teeth, but I do have this relationship and I want to preserve that. So trying to, focus on ways that the relationship can be the first point of contact, and then the disagreement built upon that level of trust and a mutual understanding as much as you can. All of this with the caveat that, of course, we are only one side of it. Someone else is the other side. We can only do so much, but as a good operating principle. And then this one, and you guys can chime in here if you want, which is, disagree without assuming the worst, but try to make the strong man argument of whatever they're saying. So before you respond, just in your own head, think about what is the most charitable version of what they are saying. And again, if it is some troll saying something utterly ridiculous, the most charitable version might be this person's just trying to rile people up, or whatever. But someone who seems to have good faith, what is the most charitable way that I can perceive them actually believing it, and then try to respond to that, and not just the kind of caricature top level thing that we get, the back and forth bumper stickers. And so I can ask the question, and you guys can answer if you want, or it can be rhetorical, which is just someone that you disagree with greatly, but you still respect. Like, what is it that lets you hold on to that respect, even with intense disagreements with someone? Anyone?
I'll start, Laura.
Yeah.
I prefer not to use her name, but it's somebody I know from the senior center, and we're friendly, but she's homophobic.
Mm-hmm.
I think she has a crush on a guy. I would rather not use who it is, but it's a movie star or her name. But I think she's imagining he really is her boyfriend. So so sometimes she'll spat out to me, gay men are sick, and and they should, stuff like this. Not so much lesbians. So obviously, I don't know. She doesn't know my sexuality. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, she's kind of simple. Mm-hmm. So I try to kind of deflect it. That's the only way I can do it. I don't know any other way to handle it at this point, but I think it's a lot of fantasy boyfriend ideas. And I said, look, he's not your husband. There's a difference between a celebrity crush and your husband. I think that it's gotten out of hand. I don't want to get too many people involved, but obviously the director, it's not her forte. This is not the abortion issue. Well, she went with a pro-choice sticker one time, but I think she just got it from somebody, just put it on her shirt. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's. I don't want to say what it is. It's pretty ugly, and I don't want to say. I don't want to hurt anybody.
Yeah. No, I think sometimes seeing that someone might have some thought processes that aren't totally, clear of mind is something that we do encounter a lot. Like, that's a very real thing, just in our own lives and online and everywhere. And so allowing for that to be a potential explanation of some behavior that would be hurtful, I think can be, a very generous way of interacting with someone. And as long as you make sure that you're not, putting yourself in positions to continuously be hurt, if you think that she can't hold in some of that stuff or that kind of thing. Like, you don't need to continuously subject yourself to homophobic rants if that's, you know, her primary way that she's interacting generally. But if it's something that, you know, you can have some compassion for
What I
some
would say
mental
no is
issues.
only when she gets upset over her fantasy boyfriend.
Yeah.
You know, it's. I think it's gotten out of hand personally at some point, but it's not. I don't think I can report it at this point because I don't think that the director is. It's not her forte.
Yeah.
I happen to know with the church, I do take the classes that I did check and make sure that they were not homophobic. I talked to the pastor, the secretary, the head of the religious school, and my primary care physician.
Oh, wow.
His wife is very active in Chestnut Hill,
Mhm.
and everything was fine. So trust me, I would not go to a place. Although individual members, you cannot.
Right. You
I
never know.
can't control what individual members think. I'm only looking at rampant homophobia in the pulpit.
Yeah. 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 And I think, you know, to that point, I think that it is important if we're like looking at faith communities and that kind of thing to be very aware of that. And I do appreciate churches and congregations, denominations that are very open with that they are, you know, accepting of everyone and make sure that that's a stance that is widely known and accepted because it is helpful. Like I'm personally Episcopalian, and it's funny because there's you know, the Episcopalian Church in America split in two, and there's the Anglicans that did not want to approve gay marriage and Episcopalians who did. And the Anglicans are like the more pro-life, and they do, you know, all of these kind of things that maybe are in more alignment to some stuff, but I'm like, yeah, but I'm not going to go someplace that, you know, my kids aren't going to be accepted. Like that's a hard stop. So having those boundaries, I think, is also important for us to humanizing ourselves, knowing where our limits are and where we can feel like we can be safe and everything is important too. Anyone else have anything about someone who you disagree with, but nonetheless respect?
I think it's a lot easier when you know them in person. So there's people at work, or that's a lot easier to, just because you know some of their background. Kind of like what Judy's saying. It's like you kind of know this person's background already a little bit, so you kind of get where they're coming from, even if it's a little delusional or whatever. You know, like okay, that makes more sense. Versus somebody online, I don't know this person, and they seem to act like they know me, and that's ridiculous usually.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm a little fascist. So like, okay, well, maybe how do you know that, really? You know, because I said what, you know. So that's harder to respect someone that is called you a little fascist. But
yeah, it is. Yeah, there's definitely just the insult slingers where you're like, where are we even coming from here? And it's what about this is making you think this? Yeah. And sometimes it's good to ask the questions, but sometimes you don't have the mental energy. And I'll talk about that a little bit too, is, you know, knowing when you need to just disengage. So then the second aspect that I wanted to talk about with all of this is making sure that within the work we are able to stay healthy and whole and human. And so here I have talking about being witnesses to some things and not casualties of it, especially in, again, like very dark abortion stories and things like that. So this came from, many years ago now, I worked with Yazda, which is a group that supported Yazidi survivors in Iraq. And my job was to take first-person accounts from survivors and do some, you know, as light of editing as possible, so it still preserved their voice as clearly as I could, to be presented to the UN and for other global trials to try to hold the ISIS members accountable for their actions. So as you can imagine, doing that work, the stories that I was reading and editing were some of the worst that you could possibly encounter. And so in doing that, I had to figure out a way to be a witness to the story and honor it and make sure that I was passing it forward in a way that could be really useful and helpful. And I mean, it has, even now, all these years later, we're still seeing convictions. We're still seeing, you know, UN statements. And so that work, I think, was very important. But if I had let it consume me and pull me down, I wouldn't have been able to do that work, but B, it would have just been making me a casualty of the horrors that had been committed by ISIS as well. So to do that, I tried to learn some coping skills, and actually one of them came from the Yazidi faith, that was something that they did as they had survivors coming back. So I don't know how much you all remember all of this, but basically at the time when these there was a mass slaughter of the men and boys, families escaping into the mountains to survive as best they could, and then a lot of women and girls were taken as sex slaves by the ISIS members. And then after that happened, within the community, they were able to go in and do rescues and get a lot of these women and girls out and back home over the course of several years. So they had something within the faith, that they had sort of a yearly kind of purification ritual that they did. Just at, every year they would have this purification as part of a holiday. But what they did for these young women as they came back was they went ahead and held that early to give them that sense of like, you're being welcomed back into the community. We're having this purification. We're having this way of processing this trauma and like you letting go of it. And I thought that was a really interesting thing. And I think, everyone has either secular or faith-based ways of trying to work through those really hard moments. And I think that, whatever your religious background is or no religious background, having some sort of kind of ceremony that you can name what you're saying and set it aside, I think can be really helpful, especially when you're dealing with things that are quite traumatic. And so that was something that I took and tried to incorporate as I was doing it, not like, not literally their ceremony they were doing, but just kind of using that idea of, I need to, like I said, I'm just failing. Like, I'm going to pray over this. We're going to have, something to have some closure to every time I wrap up one of these articles. And so that allowed me to move forward in a way that I felt like I was processing it as it happened, and still staying in that witness space. But then also know your limits. You don't have to be a witness to everything. And this is something I think, especially in the pro-life movement, is really important to know where your limits are. I could not do what Pro-Life San Francisco and David Daladian do. That I am aware of it. I know of it. I could not be every single day working in that space. It is too dark for me. I know I would personally really, really struggle there, especially because I am a preemie mom. I have like all the trauma related to the NICU and knowing exactly what those babies look like. So that would be something that was beyond me. And so just knowing where your limits are and not feeling any kind of shame or like, oh, I'm not as good of an activist because I'm not doing this. Like, everything is not made for everyone. You are doing important work no matter what you are doing. And if there's something that is just too much for you, I think it's important for us to recognize that, because that's also going to help keep us from going into the burnout, right? Pushing yourself too far into things that you can't really be present to is going to put you into that burnout space. So it is okay to know your limits. It is good to know your limits. You do not have to be a witness to everything.
I think I'll comment, Lauren.
Yeah.
I would say terminating friendships in most cases is my limit. I cannot terminate friendships because people don't agree with me. If I did that, I'd have nobody left. I mean, a lot of people have told me, "Oh, you should get rid of this person." I won't. No, I just can't do that.
Yeah.
At this age, especially at my age, most people have two babies with grandchildren. That seems to be the number one problem.
Yeah. No, I think that's important, knowing that like being in a relationship with other people is something that you value highly, and it is important for you to stay in those relationships, even when there are, things that make them hard to stay there. And I think that's, is a healthy way of trying to live in this world that's so contentious and so, factious. So I like to hear that. Okay. So this last bit is about just online dehumanization. I made the humanity dies in the comments Washington Post joke that I was trying for there. But the comment section can be a cesspool, as we all know, right? It can be, sometimes you see the worst of the worst there. So how to try to engage online, specifically with people who you don't have any more relationship with than just, they came across your feed, is some thoughts here. So first of all, I think it starts with the content that we put out, right? Because we can control that part. We can't control what they bring in, but we can at least control what we're putting out. So these are just 4 real quick, like, things to run through before you post something. And this is a big reminder of me. I used to be big time Facebook, 10 paragraph pontificator. I've slowed down that, but these are good for everyone to remember. So first of all is it true, and do I really know that, right? And this is more so when it comes to like sharing things, especially in the world of AI and all that kind of stuff. Like, before you post, before you share, make sure this is actually a true thing that I'm sharing, and it's not just whatever random thing the algorithm has decided is now going to be spread across our feeds. So just a quick check: do I know this is true? The second is, and this can be, sometimes you are just venting, right? But if you're trying to post on behalf of an organization or, to make a point, is this a persuasive argument? Or is this just me venting and ranting about something? Which, again, like, there are times and places for venting and ranting. But if you are trying to make a, cohesive argument about a specific thing, then you want to try to remember the silent audience, first of all, who don't agree with you right off the bat. So they need some convincing, and, walk them to the place where they can either come to, if not agreement, at least understanding. And that's usually not just, the 10 paragraph rants. So that's a good one to keep in mind.
I'm sorry, when you say silent audience, I think I know what you mean, but it's all the other people that's following the conversation, right?
Exactly. The lurkers, the people who are not commenting, they're not saying anything. You don't even know that they're there, but they're watching. They're watching the conversation. They're looking at all the comment threads and stuff. Yeah. And they're the people who are most people, right? I can't remember the numbers now. But I read something a while ago that was saying that in any given forum, it's like 80% of people aren't actually actively commenting. They're just reading. So there is a large number of people who are just watching conversations happen and aren't actively taking part, but they're making decisions based on them. They're weighing, which side seems more persuasive to them. So just as you're posting, again, like organizationally, or when you're trying to be persuasive, remember that there are more people watching than just the guy that you're, having this debate with. So it's good. And it also kind of, it keeps your head on straight a little bit too, to, not get too heated when you're like, okay, there are people watching this conversation. It's not just, me and this troll here. And then, speaking of the troll here, would you say it to their face, right? Is this something that you could tell someone in person, face to face? Would you say this? Would you use these words? Or is it, a little beyond the pale? And I feel like, for most of us, I think we do a pretty good job of that. We're, tend to be reasonable, people, that kind of thing. But there are, little cutting remarks that we might say online that we would not necessarily say to someone's face, just because, it's easy to be snide and sarcastic online more so than in person. And then the last one is this worth my peace, right? Sometimes, even if you started, even if you are the one who started going down something, you might get a few comments in and be like, this is just not worth it. What am I doing? I'm going to bail out. And so knowing when to, cut bait and say, I'm done with this conversation, even if it is not like at that point openly hostile, or, it's still going, but you're just like, this is stressing me out more than it is proving anything. Like, and what I usually do there is I'll make one last kind of comment that I feel like sums up my general idea, and then turn off notifications, get out of there. I'm no longer talking to this guy for, 15 more back and forths, because it's, not making progress. Know when to preserve your peace. Then I'm saying, nope, not going to progress. Hold on. Oh yeah, bottom. If it fails a test, don't post it. Okay. And then just the last thing is, look, in all that we're doing, in the fighting for the baby's rights and fighting for our own rights and all these things. We don't want to lose our soul in it, right? We're not just trying to win the argument. We're trying to be someone who is worth being when the fight is over. We're not, just becoming husks to all of this activism. And especially at Rainbow Pro Life, you're fighting for your own dignity too. You are self-advocates. That is important. But you also, want to be as gentle with and rehumanizing of yourself as you are towards other people. It's really easy to have our compassion for the babies and for other groups that we are actively working towards, but we also need to have that same sense of protection and safety as well. And yeah, the work needs you whole. So if you find yourself feeling like I am burning out, I am feeling like I'm starting to see people in a way that's not healthy, it's good to stop, it's good to pause, it's good to take a break and say, let me get back to my center, and then I can move forward again as a whole person and not as someone who's on the edge. So that is it. This is my contact information. Oh, my dog's outside. I'm Lauren Pope, Rehumanize International, and email is execdirect@rehumanizeintl.org. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lauren, very much. And as soon as I reached out to Lauren, she immediately said, yes, I would love to talk to your group because you are one of our alt pro-life groups we have not had with us yet on our Zoom calls. So I appreciate that.
Yes, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to jump forward here a little bit, and I do want everyone else to be able to share a little bit as well, because this brought to light. So in college, my college, back in the 90s, I read The Machines That Shield Us. It was philosophy class, and this was before internet, essentially before all what we're doing today. And essentially, the idea is that the more immediate we are with people, the better it is. So in-person communication is the best communication, where you can see someone and hear someone and maybe even touch someone. See that in a nice way, of course. And so whenever we can, we need to do more of that. And, back in the early 90s, the idea was when you flip a light switch, you have no idea all the things that you cause emotion to happen there. And that's just a light switch, So there's so many steps between you and the other actions you're taking that it leaves you numb and out of touch, if you will. So my question to you, Lauren, and then I'll let the other one speak. How can we, one example is, yes, our soiree, even though afterwards I was like, I don't know if I want to do this again because it's too much work. However, I got to meet you in person. And I got to meet my own board members who I'd never met before, most of them. So, in person. So, and dance with them. That's a totally different thing than we're just talking online. And I'm in Kansas and you're somewhere else. So how can we, moving forward, we rehumanize us, alt pro-life, other people, be more immediate with each other? Lauren?
So yeah, I think those in-person events are really important. Again, I'll put a plug in for our conference. Come to the conference, come to this particular conference is going to be, we're actually at a retreat center. So it's going to be not just the 9 to 5 conference. We're going to have a barbecue pit and all kinds of stuff for the whole weekend. So I think that's going to be a really good experience. But yeah, having those in-person events, I think, are really important. That's why I think March for Life is really important and has been even beyond, in the post Dobbs world, there was kind of the question of, well, what will March for Life even be at this point? And I think making those in-person connections is still really important because it's good to, see people as the fully human self that they are, not just the box on the screen that you see them, once a month at a board meeting or something like that. So I think trying to maintain those kind of connections, at least annually, I think is really important. And then within organizations, and this is something that Rehumanize needs to get back to, we used to do more in-person board and staff retreats, and then that went virtual with COVID, and it has stayed virtual. So yeah, trying to get back to in-person, I think is a good goal. And I know hybrid if people can't attend because of health or whatever other issues, but I think, yeah, trying to prioritize those in-person human events, I think is a good goal for all of us.
Okay, thank you. Yes, and the board is planning on attending and sponsoring your event in October. And Lydia, who is here tonight, is already in Chicago. So,
well, fantastic. There you go. Well, we are excited to see you there. We're thrilled to have you. Yeah, I think it's going to be a good time this year. So we're excited.
Hopefully I can make it. And I'm not sure a couple other board members, but we are going to have a presence.
Good.
Understanding.
Yeah, not too far from Kansas, just like shoot up a little bit. So we're not as far as DC. Yeah, that sounds good.
Lydia, I'll put you up next to bat.
Oh, all right. What exactly do you want me to hit?
Oh, questions, comments, interrogations for Lauren.
Just a very good presentation. Much of which I've heard before, but I do appreciate it. And there's something that you did mention I had no idea about. Now I can't think of what it was. I thought I'd written it down, but anyways, very good presentation.
Thank you. Yeah, I know. I was talking to Herb about this event, and I was like, I'm not doing anything super groundbreaking. We're just kind of putting it together as the reminder, because it's easy to have that drift, as activists, where it's like, we get going and then you're like, okay, hold on, let's recenter, let's back it back up. And so, yeah, I appreciate that though. Thank you.
And Andrew?
Hey, Lauren. Just want to say thanks for mentioning like the burnout thing. I think that's like so spot on what you were saying. It's so easy to get burned out, especially with like the content that we deal with and the issues that we deal with. And there's always that like in the back of your head, oh, I could be doing more. I could do this. I could add this on top of that. Oh, I could do that. Someone asked me to do something else. Of course I can do that. And then you just sort of like, you're juggling all these different things and you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do all this? And it's very easy. I've seen it time and time again for people, and myself too, but also other people just burn out or leave the movement or do like, so it's very important to keep this sort of balance if possible of, your actual life and then your activist life, even though, it's very easy to intertwine them.
Yeah, for sure. It's easy to intertwine them, especially when you have like those social relationships that are also activist relationships and all of that kind of stuff, which then can lead to the activist arguments that become social arguments. And, there's a lot of that to have to navigate. And I think, it's something that we all have to kind of try to balance and try to do our best with. But I know, burnout, that is the killer of movements, right? It's just like there's so
all movements, like every social movement, everybody on the other side, they get burned out too,
Yeah. And it's also hard. I didn't talk about this, but in the nonprofit space, like we're always fighting for money and fighting for survival and fighting to make things happen. And it's just like that can definitely start wearing you down after a while. You're like, I don't want to make another phone call asking someone to please give me 500, like it's you gotta so you have kind of that like social battery drain too of activism that's not glamorous at all, but is still critically important, and like the paperwork and QuickBooks and just all these things that that is also part of the job, and so it's like all of that plus we're dealing with very serious, very sad stuff, so it can definitely become overwhelming if we let it.
Judy?
I also want to say Happy Pride Month, everybody.
Happy Pride Month.
Wait, Jason, remember I spoke to Lauren earlier today.
That's all right. Did you have any other comments or questions you want to ask?
I think Leah hasn't been called on.
She hasn't, but she dropped. Usually she'll put a message in the chat because she doesn't usually talk. But I don't see her. She must have dropped off.
Well, not really, but I think it's if you can go in person. Not everybody can. I was not clear to go to the March for Life. She said, absolutely not. I can walk up to a point. I can't be in large crowds. I get nervous. It's all kinds of knee problems. I mean, certain things it's just too medically risky. I was told no. I can't I cannot go against. Why take yoga? She's like, she knows how, because she sees me every week, so she knows how I'm doing. If it's against medical advice, I just cannot do something that's going to put myself at risk.
Oh yeah, and I think that's also important.
I know that, but I have to. But then, on the other hand, I can't sit around the apartment all day. It's no good.
Yeah.
As far as the Zoom now is much better than the Zoom in the 90s. Like, I graduated textile 92 and 10.85. It's certainly it's better than nothing. Zoom is much better since COVID. Before COVID, I don't want to.
Oh yeah.
It's not.
Right, and frankly,
and that's all I can say. As far as otherwise, thank you for your time. I was annoyed, but I unfortunately didn't know we were having a meeting. Yes, I'll still try to find you speakers, just so you know, if you want me to.
Yeah, of course.
I had no idea. I wasn't figuring on having a meeting till like September because of the summer months. I just figured, everybody's traveling. There's a group I'm thinking of. I don't want to hold Laura's time up, but it's Voice of Choices of abortion survivors. But when they find out we're Rainbow, that becomes a problem. They don't always want to deal with this. And another question, Lauren, is this. There's a growth of anti-Semitism and the growth of homophobia and transphobia. There has to be a limit somewhere.
Oh yeah, and
there's only so much that I'm going to put up with.
Yeah, and I think that
I paid my dues this morning before I left for the doctors, and they have to put the ridiculous security systems in the synagogues and churches because of the craziness that's out there.
Oh yeah, and I think that's a very valid point. Like, if you have someone who is going to be, I mean, even if they're not going to be overtly dangerous to you, if they're going to be acting in abusive and verbally abusive ways, like, having those boundaries up, I think is very important, especially like you said, given that there are so many attacks on synagogues and Jewish people across the country and the world that you can't just allow someone who could be a real danger to be in your spaces. I think that's completely valid.
Annie, that's how dangerous she was, and also the attacks on the rainbow people. I guess it's okay. The LGBT, I can't. It's too many acronyms. The rainbow community.
Rainbow people
was not offensive to anybody.
The rainbow people.
I'm not trying to be offensive, really.
No,
that's fine. No, that's what we do. I just realized my video, my camera wasn't on. I apologize. I'm not that person. I try to have my camera
but
on.
I mean, there's attacks on that, certainly with things like there's certainly attacks on the rainbow, the LGBT community plus, and it's scary. In my own neighborhood, you just don't know.
Yeah,
it scares that. Even to go in big crowds, I get very scared to death sometimes because you just don't know who's capable of what. We had a police incident in our Pride, Happy Pride, everybody, where there was police fights in the area. Thank God nobody got hurt, but still.
Right, and I have done Pride for Rainbow Pro-Life years ago, and now I don't feel safe doing it in person. Everything I just said, like, it's good to do things in person, but I don't feel safe. Like, it was marginally safe. That was like 6 years ago, 7 years ago when I did Pride. And even then, like, a few people were nasty, but I actually had some very nice people. And 2 lesbians came up and kind of protected me. And I was like, okay, I'm cool. But now I'm like, there's going to be this mob and I'm going to get killed. And I kind of say that facetiously, but then it's like, well, maybe not. I just sense that it's not the same. And when I say immediacy, it doesn't necessarily have to mean face-to-face, but even like Zoom is a little better than I'm messaging on this chat thing somewhere, responding to this article on Facebook. That's like probably the least humanizing, because we're not hearing each other's voices, we're not seeing each other's faces, and that's a good part of communication, right? And see what our hands do and how we're saying something. So when you're just down to pure words and in a heated debate online, that's the least humanizing. So
Actually,
I would
I
say
don't want to tie everybody's time up, but I don't want to get knocked over. I mean, these things can happen.
that's why I'm just saying. That's why I'm saying.
I don't want to be, nothing is worth winding up in a wheelchair the rest of my life. I'm not. They
Right.
could take advantage of you and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to be careful,
I
circumspect.
mean, today I think the pro-choice is just being very aggressive. We're having trouble with some Jewish groups that they're just very much more aggressive. I don't know why.
Right.
And most of my family doesn't even know
I
I'm
have
pro-choice.
that's why I have the response, because they Ruth sent us to do violence and cause problems, and that's what they were doing.
I have friends that
So,
most of my friends have no idea that I feel this way.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to keep it very quiet, unfortunately, and
sometimes that's the best
and
option.
my family. I don't want. My father's 95. I don't want to fight with my father. It's not worth it. I don't want to. He may be alive next year. How do I know that? I know this Father's Day may be his last. I don't want to fight with my brother and sister-in-law. It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
Battles.
Yeah, and I think that's also, you have to know, is this a worthwhile conversation or argument to get into, or is it just, like you said, it's not worth, like, your 95-year-old father, like, no reason to get into things. It's just going to upset him, and for what end, like, to what end, like, what good is going to be coming of this conversation too. And I think that's also something good to keep in mind, is that some conversations can be really fruitful and very important to have if they're hard, but sometimes conversations are just going to cause conflict and not actually progress anyone. So trying to understand that distinction is also important.
Know the difference. All right. Well, I think we will wrap things up. Thank you so much, Lauren, for joining us. And we will be collaborating a lot in the future. And
yes,
we will be at your conference. And
fantastic.
And yes, I will put this out to you too, Lauren. Yes, Judy has got us some good speakers, 2 or 3 already.
Jason, we'll talk after the meeting. I don't want to hold Lauren.
Huh?
I don't want to hold Lauren, but there's something I have to tell you.
Okay, hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. So, Lauren, if you have a person or organization that you think would be great to talk to us, please let me know, because we're all
definitely will. I definitely will. But yeah, thank you all so much for having me. I hope that you have a good rest of your evening, and it was great being on. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, Lauren. Okay, Judy, go ahead.
Lauren's not really involved in this.